Hi everyone. So you're looking at a Rad Power Bike or maybe any e-bike and you're wondering how much motor torque do I need to get up the hills? And if you're like me, you might live in an area where you can't just go rent a bike or try a friend's bike. So you're kind of in a situation where you might have to buy before you try. In this video, I go over the basic physics of e-biking, hoping that it'll help you make a better decision for your e-bike purchase. Shown here is the current lineup of Rad Power Bikes and the types of motors that they use. You can see that the torque ranges from 40 Newton meters up to 80 Newton meters. But what is a Newton meter, and how many Newton meters do we need? To understand the effect of motor torque, we need to look at all of the forces involved in e-biking. Whether the torque is generated by the motor or the rider, the result of this is a driving force to move the bike forward. Opposing the driving force are the rolling resistance from the tires and wind drag. And depending on the slope of the terrain, the weight can be working either for or against you. So let's figure out how much each of these forces can be. First, let's figure the driving force. For the RadCity, it has a 40 Newton meter motor and a 26-inch tire, which results in a 27-pound driving force. The RadRover has the same diameter tire, but an 80 Newton meter motor, so it generates twice the amount of driving force. And then you get the models where they have 80 Newton meter motors, but smaller diameter tires, and they can generate some impressive amounts of driving force. And finally, you have the RadMission, which is similar to the RadCity with its driving force. So getting at the question of how much torque do I need to get up the hills, this graph shows how the force of weight can work against us when riding up a hill. To adapt your situation to this graph, you need to figure two things: the total weight of the rider, bike, and cargo, and the slopes that you will be riding on. For my situation, the total weight is 250 pounds, and I've measured the terrain in my area to be about 4.5 degrees, which corresponds to 8% grade. So for my situation, I can expect about 20 pounds of driving force reduction due to weight on a hill. And just to make very clear, I highly recommend measuring the slopes in your area. I see in a lot of forums people talking about performance on hills, but one person's hill is different than another person's hill. And there are many smartphone apps that can be used to easily measure the slope of a hill, so please measure in your area. Another force that works against the driving force is the wind. You can see from the graph that wind resistance at 20 miles per hour would be about 8 pounds. And if you happen to be riding at 20 miles per hour into a 10 mile per hour headwind, the driving force reduction will be closer to 18 pounds. Rolling resistance from tires can vary quite a bit, but for well-inflated tires on a paved surface, these numbers are probably pretty close. Before I get into some examples of how to use these force numbers that we've just talked about, I want to get a sense for how much force the rider can generate when motor torque alone is not enough. For this table, I've assumed that a rider is comfortable pedaling with about 1/3 of their weight. The maximum a rider could pedal with is equal to their weight, but this would require that they stand up to do that. And we wouldn't want an e-bike if we wanted to stand, right? But mainly what this chart shows is that all of the bikes with 7 gears can generate very good amounts of driving force. The two bikes, the RadRunner and RadMission, where there's only a single gear, it will be a little tougher to generate a decent driving force. For the examples that follow, I will consider 4 different scenarios: stopped on flat ground, stopped on a slope, cruising at 20 miles per hour on flat ground, and cruising at 20 miles per hour on a slope. And mainly what I'm looking for is to determine how much I will need to pedal, so I will determine the net force without pedaling. Remembering Newton's law that says a force is required to accelerate an object, in scenarios 1 and 2 when the bike is stopped, the net driving force must be positive to accelerate. In scenarios 3 and 4, where you're already cruising at 20 miles per hour, the net driving force can be 0 just to maintain the speed. So the first example I'll give is for my situation, where the maximum grade in my area is 8%, the total weight in my situation is 250 pounds, and I don't really plan to ride on windy days. So in the first scenario, where I'm accelerating from a stop on flat ground, I have the driving force of 27 pounds and really only the rolling resistance of the tires opposing that. So I'll have a pretty good net driving force without pedaling. When I'm accelerating from a stop on a slope, I'll have the weight working against me, which takes away 20 pounds from the driving force. But still I'll have a positive driving force. I just may need to pedal a little bit, which is okay. Cruising at 20 miles per hour on flat ground, I'll still have a net driving force of 16 pounds, so that's plenty to keep me going. Cruising at 20 miles per hour on a slope with 20 pounds working against me, you see the net driving force is about minus 4 pounds. So that means it's going to tend to decelerate me, which means I'm going to have to pedal a little bit on a slope, which I'm fine with. For comparison to my situation, this is an example where the RadCity step-through may not be the best choice. In this situation, the total weight of the rider is 350 pounds. Instead of the 8% grade in my situation, this person has 12% grade, and they're willing to ride in windy conditions. And you can see in the two scenarios where the rider would be on a hill, there's pretty significant negative net driving force. So this rider is going to have to pedal quite a bit. And some people are okay with that. Others may not be. So with the same riding situation presented on the prior slide, this shows how a RadMini could perform better for that particular rider. So recall that the RadMini has the 80 Newton meter motor paired with 20-inch diameter tires, so you get impressive amounts of motor driving force. And in the situations where the rider is on a hill, you still have decently positive net driving forces without pedaling. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope this video helps you make the right decision for your e-bike purchase. Good luck!